In this class, we're going to cover attacks from the guard. So we're going to work on the cross choke, and we're going to work in two basic cross choke defenses. The cross choke is a pivotal part of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu system, and it's very important for me to develop a good cross choke, even if I'm not a gi fanatic. In order to develop a good cross choke, I'm going to need, first of all, good grip strength. So it's impossible for me to have a weak grip and be able to choke everybody out. It's not going to happen. So go out there, exercise your grip, and then come back and practice the technique. So the first thing we're going to do here is to demonstrate to you how to set it up. And as an example, I'm going to use this sort of guard here, a closed guard approach. Doesn't mean that the cross choke will only work from the closed guard. This is just one way of showing it. We're going to start by opening up his gi here, and I'm pulling with my left hand, pulling on his right collar. Now this will stretch the collar out and allow for me to place 4 fingers in and slide them up very smoothly. Now I want to be deep here. Remember, when we're choking from the mount, I got to make sure that my knuckle touches the ground. The same thing goes here. I want to make sure that I have a deep grip there. I don't want to be too shallow. And I want to make sure as well that my hand is in touch with this side of the neck right there. Once I get the first hand in, if I just try to go ahead and get the second one in, it would be very complicated. So I got to create an angle here. This angle will be created by moving on your back and chopping at the same time with the right calf against his body. Here. So I brought my opponent down. His back is almost parallel to the mat, and this is a great position for me to finish the choke. The second hand will now come into play. I can place my thumb in if I want to, or I can simply grab on the outside, which is what I normally favor. Now, once I get the choke, I'm going to have to bring the left elbow down. I don't want it to be against his face here. That's not technical, and might hurt my partner here, but it will not do much for me during a fight. Now, it's very important for me not to stay away from him. If I stay away from my opponent and I try to finish this choke here, it's not going to be very effective. It's very easy for him to just post on my chest here and push away. I'm going to lose the grip, lose the choke. What I want to do instead is, once I get to this position and my second hand comes into play, I'm going to follow the hand. So I'm going to come up doing a nab crunch here. So get control of that second collar and come up. After you come up, you're going to bring your opponent down with your legs and the neck choke at the same time, twisting your hands so that your palms are now trying to face you, and bringing your elbows towards your ribs. And you're going to get the tap. Now, let's take a look at that again. I start right here. I'm going to pull on that collar. 4 fingers will slide in. I slide my hand all the way up. I now cut the corner, bringing him down also with that leg chop. Second hand will come into play. I'm going to come up with it, and now I bring him down for the finish. Now, let's take a look at some defenses against the cross choke. First thing is to always be in a good stance here. So I want to make sure that my knees are spread out and my stance is good. Once he grabs that choke there, we're going to start with the basic Amasapão choke defense against the cross choke. The Amasapão choke pretty much nowadays is only used for this. It's very unusual to see somebody get the tap from the mounted position with that choke. So he gets the cross choke there, alright? Once he gets that cross choke, I'm going to make sure that I use my top hand here. So my left hand will come over the top, and I'm going to get control of his collar. And what I'm doing here is not going too deep. I want to go palm down, my thumb is towards me, right here with some slack, because I'm trying to cross that collar on top of his neck. This hand here will be my bottom hand, and thus it's going to go underneath his gi here so I can grab this collar, the left one. I'm going to pull down on this, and I'm going to press through with my left hand. As I do that, in order to get the choke faster, because this is a race here, he's choking me, I'm trying to choke him. Let's see who gets it faster. Now what I want to do here, if we stay here, it's going to be a pretty close finish. We don't want to race like that. What I want to do here is that I want to use my body weight behind it. So I can come up here, I can come on my toes, and now I use my body weight as I do this here. Chances are I'm going to win this. He lets go. As soon as he lets go, I got to go back to my posture. What I do want to do is get gritty here. That's a very, very bad sin in jiu-jitsu. You don't want to go up there and try to finish the choke. If I try to finish this choke, it's going to look something like that. I'm going to try to choke him, and boom, I'm going to get my arm in an arm bar. So don't do it. As soon as you get the cross choke released, you're going to go back into your basic natural posture. He gets the choke. I'm going to go ahead, control the collar. I'm going to control the opposite collar there. I'm going to drive forward. So make sure that once you do this here, so when I get this collar open, all right, and I'm ready to control his right collar, I'm going to pull in the left one down, drive forward, and now finish. Once he releases, right away you can see that I bounce back. I don't want to stick with that basic move forever. So this Amasapon choke is not designed to, really choke the guy unconscious. It might happen if I get lucky and I get a stubborn guy that won't let go. But once he does let go, I got to let go because of the arm bar. So let's keep that in mind. The second defense is a little bit more advanced, and it's the most common one, is penteando, which means pretty much combing your hair. So in this one, my opponent will get the first hand. By the way, as soon as he gets that first hand in, that's when I want to react. I don't want to wait for that second hand to come into play. So when he gets that first hand, if I can, I'm going to try to be heavy on top of the hand. So I just bring my left hand and try to place it right here. Now, if he comes with the second one still, I'm going to now try to attack the top elbow. So I'm going to try to push that elbow up to create some room between his left and right forearm. This room here I'm going to use to bring this arm up. The most common mistake is to stop right here. If I stop right here, this is what's going to happen. If he has good grip, he's going to crush me and get the choke. So once I open this here, so go ahead. Once I open it and I start shooting this hand, it's important that I go deep with it. Right here. Now, there will still be some pressure from the first hand, but it will not be enough to tap me out. Once I get that, I can keep popping it until he either gives up the choke or I'm going to break it open due to the pressure from this hand here. He gets the first grip, chop, just to make sure that it's not super tight. He gets the second one, pop the elbow up. Go behind your head. And now, drive forward, drive forward. He will either give up the choke or he's going to go ahead and be forced to open it because of the pressure. In this class, we're going to cover 3 basic techniques from the guard. The arm bar, the escalated arm bar, and the defense from the arm bar. Let's start with the basic arm bar. We're going to instruct our students on doing the basic arm bar from close guard. That's the easiest position to learn this technique here. So we're going to start by using this grip here. This is the grip that I prefer using it. And why? Because it translates directly into no gi. So a lot of people there prefer to grab the gi. I prefer to just cup above the elbow and bring my forearm down so I'm gluing his forearm to my chest. If you do want to use the gi and you want to use a gi variation, I really recommend that you use your left hand here in his elbow and right hand either here or even with a thumb inside, because you're going to add a little choke when you finish the move. For now, we're just going to stick with this grip here. Now, the first step in the arm bar from the guard is always to place your foot on his hip on the same side of the arm that you're attacking. The next step will be to cut an angle, chop your opponent down with your right calf, and turn your head and move it to the opposite side. It's important that I keep my back flat while doing that because I don't want to lose any power. If I turn sideways during an arm bar, it's going to make it weaker. So it's important for us always to be facing the ceiling. So I'm going to move here, chop with the leg, and my head will come this way. Now I'm perpendicular to my opponent. What that does for me is, number one, with a chop, I'm bringing his back parallel to the mat.
breaking my opponent down. It's harder for him to resist the lock, try to yank that arm out of the way. The second thing is that by cutting this angle, it makes it easier for me to throw my leg over. Now, if I wasn't at a 45-degree angle, for example, I would need more flexibility in order to get that leg over the head. From here, it's very easy to throw the second leg over. This type of armbar is also very tight. Once I get to this position, I'm also grabbing the wrist here. My hand is already by his elbow. It's slid down. And all I got to do to tap now is lower the leg. And it's a very tight armbar. If need be, if this guy's extremely flexible, sure, I can thrust my hips up to finish. But I don't have to. It's always better to go down with the leg because there's more power there and it's safer. The lower I go with the leg, the harder it is for him to get back to good posture. Control the arm, right arm, right arm. So always the same side. Foot on the same side of the arm that you're attacking. Very important. Next step, move sideways, move your head, back is flat on the ground. You chop down with the leg. Third step, if need be, you can push his head out of the way so you can throw the leg over and get to this position. Now stretch the leg down and get the tap. If you need to, you can also thrust the hips up to get the finish. This is the first variation. The second variation will utilize the same grip. But now, I do not want for, it can be for a number of reasons, to open my closed guard. This is going to be a climbing or escalating arm bar. So what I will do here is control the arm with the same standard grip. Now the first step here will be to throw this leg not on his hip, but throw the leg all the way over the shoulder. Right? That will be movement number one. So all I did really was move from here to here, and he's still inside a very tight guard there. Now, the next movement will be to follow with my right leg right here. So all I did was to climb my guard on my opponent. I can now easily finish by throwing this leg over. This, as you can see in this armbar here, my opponent's a little higher. He's still in a good power stance. Most likely he's going to try to come up. With this armbar, it's easier to finish with a hip thrust than it is without one. Control, and don't do the first variation. Just move it from here to here. Now, the next step is to move the opposite leg, throw this over, apply pressure to get the tap. Now let's see a basic armbar defense. There are many ways of defending the armbar. What we're going to use today here is a crushing motion. What I always tell my students is that it's very important not to try to panic in here and yank that arm out. There are times that will work, but I got to make sure, and I got to be 100% sure when I move and I try to stand up and yank that arm out that it's going to go. If I'm in doubt, it's better to crush my opponent. So the movement of choice is to go down and apply pressure on him, and I'll show you why. He controls my arm. He goes ahead and he applies the arm bar. Any variation will do. Go ahead. The first thing that I need to do here is to crush my opponent. He is trying to move his hips up to get the tap. So that's what's going to get the tap. I need to deny him the ability to extend his hips. So I'm going to use my left forearm right here behind the neck, and I'm going to apply pressure forward. My right foot is planted on the ground. My knee is right underneath his lower back. Why? Because I want to prop his hips up and prevent him from trying to roll me to that side. If I have a weak base here, he'll hook my leg and I'm going to go. So make sure you have a good base. Now all I got to do is start yanking that arm out. So slowly with, strong pulls, I'm going to get that arm out of the way. Once I get that arm free, I'm going to circle to the right side. So I'll circle to the right side, and the key element here is to maintain pressure with your ear by the side of his thigh. If I relax here, he's going to open up and get a triangle. So apply pressure and start circling. This arm here will shoot towards the back, and you're going to pass guard. He gets me an arm bar. I'm going to apply pressure forward. Now his back is bent in a V. It's impossible for him, even if he tries to crank the position, go ahead, can't generate any power. I take my time and I get that arm out. Might take a couple of pulls, that's fine. This hand is going to come in, and I'm going to take control of the position, get in side control. In this class, we're going to cover my favorite position in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the triangle choke. So we're going to start with a basic triangle from the guard. We're going to teach you how to escape the triangle with posture, and we're going to teach you how to escape the triangle when it's really sunk in and almost finished. So let's start with the triangle from the guard. When I execute the triangle from the guard, the first thing that I need to decide is what setup to use. Normally, we teach beginners the very basic setup. So we get them to transition from closed guard to what I call the mixed martial arts guard, right here. Then I'm going to teach my student to place one foot on one biceps and to move the other arm in like this. This is what I call the archer stance, because it looks like he's, ready to fire an arrow right there. Now, when it gets to this position, all I got to do is slide his foot up, and I'm going to cause a situation here where one arm is outside my guard, one arm is inside my guard. And that's where I want to be when it comes to triangles. After this happens here, the next step is crucial, and most likely what makes my triangle be different from what most people teach. The majority of jiu-jitsu schools will teach you to close like this, staying in line with your opponent, and pulling the head to finish. With this, the problem with this is not only it's harder to close the triangle on people that are slightly bigger, but it's also harder on your neck. If he drives forward and starts bringing pressure, and most people will when getting triangle, you're going to hurt your neck pretty easily. I also need to rely on both hands here to apply pressure on my triangle, which means they're not going to be able to attack anything else. The alternative to this is what I do. After I free that foot right there, I'm going to come down and chop against the back of the neck. So my right leg chops down just like a guillotine. It's going to come down like a blade, and I'm going to bring my opponent down with it. At the same time, I'm moving my head to the side, keeping my back flat on the mat. It's very important to keep your back flat on the mat, otherwise you're going to lose a lot of power. While I do this, I also control the inside arm, and you can use any grip that you're comfortable with. And I'm going to bring this arm to this side so that his right arm will, especially the right elbow, will rest right on top of my hip bone. So let's take a look at this here. From here, I'm going to move, chop. You can see that I'm now perpendicular to my opponent. The triangle choke consists of two bars and his head trapped between those two bars. One bar is my calf coming on top, and it comes down, like I said, with energy here. I don't want this to be a lazy movement. And the other bar is his arm, which I crossed over right before I clamped down. It's important to cross over before you clamp down. If I cross over before I clamp down, you can see that his chin is in the front of his arm. If I reverse the order, this will happen. It's nowhere near as effective. So this makes for a very deep triangle. Now, the second leg will come into play. Let's understand this. The second leg is not part of the choke. It's a safety catch here. So if I do this here, the choke is already taking place. He's already being slowly choked there. This only adds speed to the process and safety to the process. It's very important, yet it's not mandatory. Sometimes I'll close a triangle with my arm taking a second place. Once I get this, how should I crank the triangle? As the name implies, the triangle choke is named by this here. It's a triangular gap where I'm trapping his head and arm. Now, the way that I want to do this is that I want to narrow this gap so he gets choked. So there will be two components to this. I'm going to squeeze my thighs together so I'm narrowing that V. And I will also bring my heel down so I can lower my calf, thus making this triangle smaller and smaller. So the thighs will come in and the heel will come down, which brings the calf down. So we're doing this here. So I close, my top leg will be positioned in a way that my right foot is right behind my left knee, and I apply the pressure to get the choke. You can see that I didn't need to pull hard on his head or anything of the sort, which means that my hands are free to do other things. I can be attacking a triangle, cranking hard on it, while at the same time attacking an inverted armbar, an armbar inside, an Americana inside, a Kimura outside, and all sorts of things. So very important. Let's see that once again. So I control right here. Let's start from closed guard and see that transition. Control the wrist, bring him to MMA guard. Place one foot in the biceps, extend that leg, pull the other arm in. Slip that foot out of the way, chop down while moving sideways, and make sure you're crossing the arm there. The more you cross, the better. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring the second leg into play, lower my heel down towards the ground, and get the tap. Now that we've learned how to apply the triangle choke, let's take a look at how to defend it. The triangle choke will be defended according to which stage I find myself in. So if I'm able to react to the triangle right away, it's better. So that's what we're going to cover right now. My opponent gets me in a triangle, but it's not extremely tight or anything. So I'm still in a situation where I can base out. How will I base out here? I'm going to bring my back straight, and at the same time I will slide my knees forward. Now I'm going to sit back on my heels, bringing my posture up, like this. Now you can see that I'm pulling this elbow back. Now, as I'm looking forward, and this is very important, you should not bend the neck. Once you bend the neck, you will grab the neck and bring it down, so always look straight forward. As I'm doing this, I'm going to elbow back, so I'm applying pressure with my right elbow on top of his left thigh, and at the same time, I'm swimming through with my left arm and especially shrugging the shoulder here. This will break the triangle open. I will be able to get to the side. So right here, and it opens up the pass for me. Now, once again, see how this one popped open right away? I'm going to go ahead and chop. Now, once this happens, all I got to clear here is this leg to pass to the side. Very easy technique, very easy defense here. Slide and sit back. Pop, and now one motion, shrug and elbow, out of there. Now, the final technique of this series is the basic triangle escape from when the triangle is sunk in. Make no mistake about it, you don't want to start your defense with this technique, because if this fails, you're running out of options. So let's start with always trying to base out in posture. If that fails, there are other things I can do in between for the more advanced students. And if that fails, then finally we're going to get to this one here, which is pretty much the last stance. So I'm going to go right here, and he gets me in a triangle. This is very tight. My back is almost parallel to the mat, so I'm getting choked as I'm talking. So here's what I need to do. The first thing is to protect my arm so it doesn't get arm bar in there. I'm already caught in one submission. I don't want two to happen. So right here, hand comes on top of the knee. My outside arm comes over so that my outside hand is on top of that hand. This is just safety for me. If I try to resist an armbar with just my curl and power, it's not going to work. But if I have that second hand in, that's pretty good. I'll be able to resist it for a while. The next step will be to bring his knee down to the ground. The problem while I'm doing this is that I'm off balance, so I need to compensate by placing my left foot up. If I fail to do so, what will happen is that he's going to roll me over and finish the triangle on top. So, control, control. Now, I base out, and then I'm going to go ahead and try to drive that knee to the ground. Once I get to this position, what I need to do is pull his knee towards my left hip bone and drive the inside shoulder forward. So pull here, drive the inside shoulder forward, and this will pop the triangle open. Once it does pop open, I got to go back and bring my knee in. If I don't bring that knee in, I've seen it thousands of times before. The guy works hard towards getting the triangle escape, only to get caught in another triangle. So make sure once it pops out, you're going to bring that knee up. Alright? Let's see that again. Hand on top of the knee. Hand on top of hand. Step up. Bring that knee all the way down. Now drive back and thrust your shoulder forward. Pop it up and get that knee in. Now you can try to pass. Now we're going to discuss the Kimura lock and the inverted armbar from the guard. So we're going to start with the Kimura. We're going to then do the Kimura defense, and then we're going to move on to the inverted armbar, which is quite an interesting technique here. Let's start with the Kimura lock. We're going to move this way here so you can see the details. When I'm applying the Kimura lock, the first thing I need to accomplish is to get my opponent to post on the ground. Now, with beginners, that's pretty easy because a lot of the beginners think they will get a lot of support from placing their hands on the mat. So all I got to do is grab their wrist. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated when we're sparring people that are, of a higher rank. They normally stay right here. So what I need to do is use my legs to get them off balance. Once they post, I control their hands and I keep that arm there. I don't want my arm to be bent. I don't want to bring that hand too close because he's going to start grabbing things, and now I don't have a good, strong angle in my arm. I won't be able to generate a lot of power. So I want to keep that arm slightly far away from my hips. The next step will be to come up with a technique. So I'm going to come up and place my left armpit on top of his shoulder, like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and circle that arm. However, I do not want to bring my hand in so that I can lock right away. This is where a lot of people make this mistake here. You cannot do this. If I'm grabbing here, unless I have very long arms, it means that he will be able to grab my belt, grab his own hand behind my back, or something of the sort. Those are not good things for me, so why do it? You don't need to grab your wrist right now. Just leave your hand right here, ready to grab as you fall through, with the rest of the technique. Once I get to this position, the next component of my Kimura lock will be the shrimp. I'm going to shrimp towards the same side of the arm that I'm attacking. The very important here is to bring your knee on top of his shoulder. So when I shrimp, I want to be heavy on my opponent. My knee will slide in towards the shoulder. It'll bring his back towards the ground. My goal is to smack his face on the mat there. I want him flat against the mat and not in a position where he can generate a lot of power or leverage. So right here, I'm going to shrimp and bring my knee down towards the ground. Once that happens, now you can see that I always maintain a 90-degree or close to 90-degree angle on his arm. If I make the mistake of pushing this hand too far away, he's going to grab the gi. If I, on the other hand, make the mistake of extending that arm too much, I'm going to lose the technique. So keep it at an optimal 90-degree angle. Once I get here, this is the time I was here. This is the time that I want to close my, grip here. So I'm actually grabbing my wrist right now. I'm very heavy with that right knee on top of his left shoulder. Very heavy. And slowly, I'm going to drive that wrist towards the back of his head, achieving a tap. Let's see that again. I start from the guard. I got to off balance him first so I can get that grip. I raise myself up, armpit to the shoulder. Circle with your left arm around, but do not try to grab. You don't want to give him that advantage. Shrimp to the side of the arm that you're controlling, while at the same time bringing that leg over. My opponent is now off balance. So that's great. Now that he's off balance, I can think about cranking the technique. Control your own wrist, slowly apply pressure towards the back of the neck, and get the tap. Now, once I know how to execute the Kimura lock, I need to know how to defend it. So we're going to move here so you can see a basic defense to the Kimura lock. I'm right here. My opponent will apply the Kimura here on this arm. Once he applies the Kimura on this arm, we already covered the technique. So what he wants to do there is shrimp that way. I'm going to block that movement by coming over to the top of the elbow here and bringing that elbow in. I can go outside, or I can actually shoot inside and come in. In Jiu-Jitsu, this is a little safer. In mixed martial arts, I have gloves on. Sometimes I cannot really find the gap there. I got to go over the top. The important part, though, is not where I go, but what I do with this elbow. I'm going to bring the elbow in, which means he will no longer have the support to come up, and I'm going to drive my weight forward. So here, pull, drive your weight forward. Now, it's a very bad position. He's strapped there, and I'm heavy on top of him. Now I'm going to be able to extend the hand back. Now, I can do whatever I want with it. Come back to guard, attempt to pass, punch if it's an MMA fight. So, it'll depend on the situation. Once again, he started doing the Kimura. This time I'm going to shoot inside the Jiu-Jitsu version. Control the elbow or forearm, bring that elbow in and drive forward. Now, I'm already extended the hand here. He no longer can hold to that, so I'm going to pose and escape. There are other escapes for the Kimura, but this is the very basic one. If you get the timing right, if you drill this properly, and you're able to react in a fast manner, you're going to get this all the time. It's going to be very hard to apply Kimura lock on you. Now, let's look at the final submission from the guard, the inverted armbar. The inverted armbar from the guard, it's another technique that it's very likely to take place when he posts on the mat. However, I don't have to force him to post because I do not need to control his wrist. What I'm looking to control here is the arm above the elbow. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot my arm through like an underhook. This elbow here is pointed that way, so I'm going above the elbow. My thumb is pointed towards my face. The second arm comes through. So if I'm attacking the left arm here, I'm using my right arm. The second arm will come through my left, and I'm going to bring pressure on top. So I'm grabbing like this here. So the grip that I use is thumb is pointed towards me. I'm going to go ahead and clasp my hands together. One of the few situations where I'm actually using my thumb in a grip. This would not have the same power if I was using a gable grip. So right here. The next step is to pinch your forearms together. This will create a lot of pressure there. I'm compressing his arm, and it will prevent him from rotating it a lot or even trying to get it out of there by jerking it back. Once this is done, the next step is to crank the lever. So I call it cranking the lever. It's pulling my grip here towards me. And as that, I do this here, you're going to notice that his hand is going to come up. Now when he comes up in the air, I'm going to start raising my right elbow. And that will force his wrist to slide exactly where I want it to slide, which is right here between my shoulder and neck. So let's observe that. As I do all of this, I'm going to start shrimping this to the same side of the arm that I'm attacking. Here, see how I'm now going to raise the elbow and get that hand where I want it to. At the same time that I did this, I move my leg up. And just like the Kimura, or just like any other submission, I want to break my opponent down first and then crank the submission. So my knee is on top of his arm is resting right here. If I leave it relaxed like that, it ain't going to work. He's going to have a lot of room to rotate. So as soon as I get to this position, what I'm doing here is pretty much pinching my neck towards my shoulder. So like this. Now he can no longer rotate the arm. This hand comes right on top, and I apply pressure downward to get the tap. Let's move it a little this way. Watch from this angle. I'm right here. I'm going to open it up. Now, if I cannot have him place his hand on the mat, that doesn't matter. All I need is that underhook, so I can shoot my hand through, get control of this position, pinch my forearms together. Now, I crank the lever as I shrimp. Now, I raise my elbow as I place the knee in the correct place. And I have this lock ready to go. Now, the important thing about the inverted armbar here is to understand that I need to be close to my opponent, but not glued to him. Now, there is room here for my arm to shoot through. So there's space between James's arm and my chest. If I had it glued like this, there's no leverage. I will apply pressure here all day long, and you can see that I lose control of the wrist. So you got to be curled. So my body is formed into a V, and there's space between his arm and my chest. Now I apply pressure. Beginners prefer to apply pressure like this. With time, you're going to be able to just lay your forearm on top and bring it down and get the desired effect, the tap.
In this class, we're going to cover the guillotine choke defense, and the transition from the guard into the back mount. Let's start with the guillotine choke. I'm going to start from the guard position. The easiest way to get a guillotine choke from the guard, it's not to be flat on your back as we normally do, but to sit up. I can use butterfly guard if I want, or this sort of guard. It doesn't matter. I prefer to get it with my legs on the outside so the finish is easier. I'm going to start the guillotine from the guard by controlling the back of his head, and I'm going to snap that person down to the opposite armpit. In other words, if I have my left hand behind his neck, I'm going to snap him down towards the right armpit, like this. Once I get this position, I will now use my right hand to go on top. And I got to make sure that I do not go too deep with it. We're going to change the angle so you can see the grip now. My thumb is barely clearing the side of his neck there. Now this is very important. I don't want to go too deep with it. I just want to do this. And the grip that I'm going to use to finish is a very simple guillotine grip. We're not going to get fancy here. There are other ways to finish, but we're going to use this sort of grip here. So let's check that out again. We're right here. I'm going to use my left hand to snap the person down. I'm going to bring my right arm across, and I try to bring my opponent's face towards the inside as I do that. So once again, here and here. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my regular grip. I'm going to fall back for the finish, and the important part is to always cross the leg over. So arch your back slowly and pinch your elbow in to get the tap. Let's move back. Once again, I'm going to start right here. Snap down, circle, grab the hand, fall back and throw at least one leg over. If you want to cross the legs, that's fine. There are basic 3 ways of executing the guillotine here and finishing it. One is to arch your back towards the ceiling as you pinch that elbow in. The second one is to stretch the legs back as you squeeze that elbow in. And the third one, and hardest one, is to shrimp towards the opposite side of the head. Now, apply pressure by bringing it up and pinching the elbow in. Once we learn how to execute the guillotine choke, we must need to learn how to defend it properly. The most important thing with the guillotine defense is to be able to maintain a good posture. If he's not able to bring you down and break you down, he will no longer be able to get the guillotine. Sometimes, though, you're going to see that I'm caught in the guillotine choke because I made some mistake. So if he gets me there in the guillotine, the first thing that I need to do is to guarantee some breathing room for myself. So I'm going to use my free hand, so the hand that's on the same side of the head, to control the wrist. I'm going to bring that wrist out. I'm going to tuck my chin towards the inside and bring it in towards my chest. Very hard for you guys to observe this here, but I'm going to be doing this throughout the whole movement. So, here. Now, his guard is closed, so I cannot jump to the opposite side, which would be the easiest way to defend it. Now, my right hand will come across the neck. I'm going to apply pressure with the blade of my hand against his neck. I'm going to drive off my feet and apply pressure forward. As I apply pressure on the neck, I move that hand back. I can break it like this, or if he really has a strong grip, I'm going to have to push
right on the elbow. So if he really has a strong grip here and this doesn't cut it, I'm going to go ahead and apply pressure against the elbow. As I do that, I'm going to sit back and pop that head out. So there are many ways of executing this sort of technique. It is important to remember that I want to keep my chin in. I'm going to try to take pressure off my neck, and the guillotine choke escape will always be a scramble. There's no way around it. Now let's look at the final technique, getting the back mount from the guard position. We will start from the guard position, and the way that I'm going to set him up for a back mount will be to execute an arm drag. So for the arm drag, there are many ways to arm drag. The no-gi variation will be to do this here. This is probably the easiest way to go, not to rely on a gi. If you do want to use a gi grip, do it like this. So pull this way. Let's see the no grip one. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to pull his arm across, which is called an arm drag. I pull him towards me with my legs, especially my right calf here, and I glue my chest to his shoulder so he can no longer yank that arm back. From this position, I'm going to shrimp a little and control the far armpit. I'm now able to throw the leg over, so the leg that's on top of his back is thrown over to the side. My elbow, right elbow is on the ground, so I can support myself and start coming towards his back. My right hook will come into play, and then I place my second hook in. I got the back mount. Let's see it again. Right here, here. Drag, bring him over, clamp with the calf, close the distance between chest and shoulder, control the far armpit. Throw the leg over as you shrimp. Raise your hips off the ground so you can slide the first hook in, slide the second hook in, and you have the back mount position. Let's cover the omoplata and two escapes. We're going to start with the omoplata position from the guard. I will only be able to get this omoplata situation if I force my opponent to post or to open his elbow towards the side. So in this case here, the easiest way to go about it is to bring him over with my legs. That way he's going to be forced to post if I do it with intensity. So right here, he posted. As soon as he posts, I control that arm. And the way that I want to control the arm in the omoplata lock will be to get 2 fingers above the elbow, 2 fingers below the elbow. So I got my 2 top fingers against his arm, 2 bottom fingers here against his forearm. My thumb is in the front. Now, why do I do that? Because it's important with the omoplata lock, as I'm setting up the lock, to go ahead and twist this elbow. So right now his elbow is pointed this way. I'm going to twist him so that it points now to the front. This is the key to a good omoplata lock, especially from other positions. So make sure you do this so you can break the guy down effectively. Now, once I do that, what I need to do next is to shrimp away from my opponent. So I'm going to place this foot right here, and I will shrimp away towards the same side of the arm that I'm attacking. While I'm doing this, just like the Kimura lock, I'm going to bring my right knee on top of his shoulder, and I'm going to be trying to be as heavy as possible. Now, the position that I have here is extremely favorable. His back is parallel to the mat. I'm bringing a lot of power on top of his shoulder here with my right knee, and his arm is bent in the exact angle that I desire. His wrist resting by my right hip bone. I will now go to the next step, which will be to raise myself up on my left elbow, to cross my right leg on top of his head, and to substitute that leg for my arm here. Now, if I do this here, and I do not follow with the hand there, he will be able to escape simply by rolling forward. So be very careful. Once you let go of this pressure here, you're going to come up. We're breaking the omoplata down in sections, but normally what you do is one smooth movement from start to finish, and we're going to show you later. Now I'm going to sit up, cross, and my arm will come right here on his armpit. Now, once we get to this position, I'm going to start looking to finish. The best way to finish here is to stay on top and get my opponent to be as flat as possible. I'm going to drag. I'm going to start by dragging this left foot out, and I'm going to plant it. I'm going to think about the position that's the same one in the knee of the belly. My leg is not completely extended, but slightly bent at the knee. You can see that I already brought my right foot from underneath him, and the pressure starts to come out on top of his shoulder. Now, I could just simply drive forward and finish, but it's always a good idea to try to get him as flat as possible. I want his arm to touch the ground, not only his shoulder. Now, my knee is right on top of his shoulder and arm. I'm going to make sure that I'm really pinching here inside with my calf. And when I raise towards the finish here, I want to make sure that my butt is off the ground. So don't leave your butt there and try to just do this here, because it's not going to work effectively. What I want to do is to focus my weight on top of this shoulder here, and after I do that, I'm going to start moving my body and shifting my balance 45 degrees to the front. It looks like this. Right there. So I'm going this way there with the move. Alright? Now, whenever you're training, or if you're teaching your students how to execute the omoplata, it's important to teach them how to break away from the lock once you've executed it, because you don't want to hurt your opponent. So be very careful on the way out here. Extend his arm and push it away so he can break free without any damage to the joint. Once again, I'm going to force him to post. I'm going to control the elbow, and I'm already bringing that elbow in with a twisting motion. Now I'm going to go ahead and shrimp and bring that knee down. Now sometimes instead of going into this and throwing the leg over, when you're more advanced, you just throw the leg over. Can look like this here. That's another way of doing it. That's fine. In order to teach beginners, it's slightly easier, and it will build a good foundation if you teach them to bring the guy down. So he has to bring the opponent down. I'm going to raise myself up on my elbow, cross the leg, control the armpit. Place my hand on the ground so I can drag this out and get ready for the finish. This is not yet good enough for me. I want to make sure that I drag him down. The lower he is, the better it is. And now I'm going to start driving forward. Unlock it safely, and we're ready to work on the omoplata defense. I will have James apply an omoplata lock here on this arm. Now, my first option for escape is to go ahead and jump over the top. In order to be able to jump over the top, I got to get his back on the mat. How do I accomplish that? I'm going to base out here with my left hand on the ground. I will also place my left foot on the ground, and this will give me enough drive to apply pressure forward to get that person there on top. Now, once I get that back on the mat, I'm going to be able to start moving towards his head. Now, I could jump over, or I can simply walk over. We're going to take a look at both scenarios. So right here, so you can get a good view of it. If I want to walk over, I'm just going to move towards the head and circle. If I want to jump over, though, all I got to do, I'm right here, I'm going to jump over and cover. My hand will come right here, control the neck, and I get him in side control. Let's see that again. Now, make sure you plant your hand on the ground and you plant your foot on the ground. Now, you're going to apply pressure this way and jump. Once you jump, you cover and get side control. The other defense is to roll under. This is slightly more complicated, but it's an excellent escape. This time, instead of jumping that way, I'm going to roll this way here. So in order to be able to execute that roll, I need to be able to look towards my opponent. If I can't look towards him, it's going to be impossible to roll because of the position of my neck here. So make sure you're looking towards the inside, and you plant my right foot up here. And I'm going to wait for him to come forward and try to submit me. As he comes forward, my left hand will reach towards the back of his right thigh, and we're going to roll under. Go ahead. He's trying to finish. I come right here. I'm going to roll under, and I land like this. Once I land into this position here, I'm going to go ahead and circle, cutting the angle to get the guard pass. Once again, he gets the omoplata lock there. I'm going to go ahead and look towards him. I always want to face my opponent here unless I have extreme flexibility. I'm going to plant that foot up. I'm going to wait for the position to come. I'm going to grab the back of the thigh, roll over right into this position. Now, as long as I don't relax here, I'm going to be good. If I do relax, he's going to catch me in a triangle there. So you got to be careful. Just like a hitchhiker escape, I'm going to apply pressure with my ear on the outside of the thigh. Circle and control. And that about covers for the omoplata lock. Our next class will cover the Ezekiel choke, the Ezekiel choke defense, and the arm triangle from the guard. I'm going to start by putting my opponent here in the guard. When I am trying to teach or apply the Ezekiel choke, it's always better to start from a sitting position here. Now, the Ezekiel choke from the guard is slightly different than the Ezekiel choke from the mount. I could execute an Ezekiel choke from the guard that looks very much the same as if I was executed from the mount. But it's better to execute an Ezekiel variation from this position. So I'm going to go right here, control the collar. And what I will do is loop that collar around like this. So I'm controlling that collar. I don't want to go too deep with this one because otherwise I won't be able to loop around his neck. So I want to go right here. This is how deep I desire to be. I don't want to be right here because that's too low, and I don't want to be too high either. So just go ahead and get a comfortable grip, and most likely that's what's going to work for you. My next step will be to bring my opponent down, and I'm going to circle my elbow until I place my elbow on the opposite side of his neck. So I started with my elbow pointing down. I will now bring the elbow to this side. Once I do this here, I got to do this very fast because I'm pulling him down to circle the elbow. If I stay here forever, he's going to bring his head back up and back away. So as soon as I pull and I circle, I'm going to bring my left forearm over the top. My left hand sinks in underneath the right elbow. Here. Now I'm going to apply pressure by pulling up with my hand and applying a steering wheel pressure, meaning that my right elbow is going to move this way to my left elbow is going to move right until I get the choke. Get the collar, pull while snapping down. You're going to circle the elbow to the opposite side. Right away, don't blink, shoot that arm through. I'm shooting my forearm across the back of the neck, and my hand is underneath my right elbow. Now I'm going to apply the steering wheel pressure like this, while at the same time pulling in that collar. Get in the tap. Now let's take a look at how you defend this choke. When defending this Ezekiel variation, I got to be very careful, and I'm got to control my elbow at the same time that I twist my head out of the way. So let's see how it's done. Once he gets this position here, the first thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to have him break it open here so you can see, it's grab this hand here and try to pull that down so I can circle my chin in and get my chin between his forearm and my neck. I'm trying to get that hand away from my neck. If I cannot get it away from my neck, at least I try to get 1 inch or 2 there of relief. So it's not as strong as if it was completely deep. So let's do that. Right there, I kind of try to block it. I can go over the top or I can go underneath, depending on how he's positioned. Now, to finish the defense, I got to use my right hand here, and it's going to come on top of the elbow. I'm going to push that across his face, and I'm out of the control. Let's check that out from a different angle so you can see the position better. Now from right here, the beginning is either this or this. Easier to do this here, all right? Now this will give you a little better pull downward. Second hand will come in. I'm going to use my hand against the elbow or against his arm. I'm going to pull forward and watch how I'm making a circle with my head. Doing one more time. He gets Ezekiel and I escape. The last position is the arm triangle from the guard. So let's give that a try. The arm triangle from the guard will start from an arm drag position. So in order to get the arm triangle, I need to make his arm come across the midline and cross it, and then close the distance on him. Because of the nature of the arm triangle, it's impossible for me to do it, not impossible, but at least very awkward for me to do it with a normal type of arm drag here. Why? Because when I arm drag with the no-gi grip, you can see that his forearm is resting on the bottom and my arm is on top. This is not the position that I want. From this here, I would have to pummel it back to get to the position where I can apply the arm triangle. Now, if I use this sort of grip here, where I'm controlling with a joystick grip and elbow, it makes things much easier. I'm going to drag him across, and at the same time that I drag, I shrimp and I apply pressure with a calf. Now, his arm is resting on top of my arm. All I got to do from here is come with my forearm against the side of the neck, like this. You can see that my elbow is on the ground, and that's the most important point there. And no time during this technique, I'm going to try to lift here. Once I lift, that's when he's going to escape. So, as you can see, if I stick my thumb out, it barely grazes the back of his neck. Now, the free arm will shoot through. And what I'm thinking about here is a rear naked choke position. So I'm going to place my hand against my biceps, and now I'm going to start bringing my hand towards my ear. It is very important to understand that I don't want to do this here and come this way, which is what a lot of people do. The higher my right elbow is, the easier it is for him to move that arm back, get that arm out of there, like this. So stay close to your opponent and always on your side. The more to the outside, the more towards the back you are, the better. Because if this fails, you get a back mount. So right here, and apply pressure until you get the tap. Let's see that again. Control the arm. So right arm by the wrist. Left arm will control the elbow. Now I'm going to drag across as I shrimp to my left and I clamp with my right calf. Now I'm going to use my right forearm up like a post here. The thumb barely grazes the back of the neck. I'm going to shoot this arm through. I'm going to control the biceps right here. Now I'm going to bring my hand back. Apply pressure. At no point in time I left that elbow right here above the ground. Make sure you understand this, and you're going to have a lot of fun with the arm triangle.